All right, so welcome. Thank you for joining us today for Mayo Employees Federal Credit Union's Understanding Identity Theft, Prevention and Recovery. My name is Stephanie McCraffick. I am the credit union's Enterprise Risk Management Specialist. I've been working in the financial industry for going on 19 years. I've been in the anti-fraud profession for almost 9 years, and I'm a certified fraud examiner. I'm really passionate about empowering people to prevent and protect themselves from fraud, scams, identity theft. And I'm hoping here today I can help provide you some tools and techniques and resources to be able to provide yourself and your family and your loved ones some ways to keep safe. So today we're going to go through what is identity theft. Identity theft as the growing threat, really understanding it, what are the common types, some preventative measures, what to do when you experience identity theft, and again, talking about spreading that education and awareness. So first, let's talk about identity theft, kind of the growing threat. So in 2023, there were 3,205 total compromises. You know, that's pretty significant. We're looking at over 353 million victims. We're looking at from data breaches, data exposures, data leaks, and unknown compromises. That's a 72 percentage point increase from 2021, which was considered the highest all-time in breaches. The total compromised industries is healthcare, financial services, professional services, manufacturing, and education. These compromises and threats are not just impacting people, but they're impacting organizations as well. But they're not the only avenue that leads to identity theft. So the Consumer Centennial Network had 4.5 million reports last year. And what they do with those is they categorize them into the top 29 different categories. And for last year, identity theft, imposter scams, and then reports against like credit bureaus or info furnishers, report users were the top 3. There were 2.6 million reports of fraud. And 27% of those reported a loss. $10 billion in total fraud losses last year. And that's from people who reported. It's really only about 30% or 1 in 400 people who actually choose to report that they've had fraud and identity theft.
Very sorry.
So let's look at identity theft losses in general. So when we review and talk to people about how they're experiencing fraud and identity theft, 42% of people have been victims of social media identity theft. So their social media accounts have been taken over. 40% said that they've been targeted by SMS phishing. That's that text messaging scams that come through. 33% experienced a financial account takeover. 34% reported that they experienced a loss of $100 to $500, which is significant. And 15% reported greater losses of $1,000. 30% of people have been victims of a company data breach in 2023 alone. And 18% continue to face financial losses as a consequence of identity theft. Where's my pointer? This is what I'm hoping to help avoid. There's things we can do to help prevent this from continuing. So let's talk about what is identity theft. So traditional identity theft is when a person or criminals or criminal groups take individual information that is private, financial, confidential, that belongs to someone else with the intent to take over that person's identity. So you've got a fraudster, a real person's name, a real person's social, and a real person's credit card, okay? Identity fraud is the use of that information. And this is a crime that impacts not only the person whose information was stolen and used, but the businesses and the organizations that that information was used at. Then we have synthetic identity fraud. So synthetic identity fraud is going to use, it's the creation of a completely fake person using either fully fake information or synthetic information, partial fake information, or information, pieces and bits and pieces that have been manipulated from multiple people. So here you've got your fraudster. They're going to create a fake name or ID. You've got someone's random social security number, which creates your synthetic identity. Now, criminals are going to use information from their victims, specifically targeting children, elderly, deceased, or immigrant populations, because these are the ones that typically go the most unnoticed and unreported. So these identities are typically used to create fake passports, fake loans, open bank accounts, used for criminal records, and then fraudulent transactions and withdrawals, which is what most of us are commonly known and familiar with. So it's not really hard anymore for them to do this. There's websites now that can decode your social security number for them. All they need is part of it. And there's websites that give them a fully unique person, 100% made up. They give them everything from where to start with the social to their geological, astrological sign. So all they need now is a face. So we're going to play a little game. I want you to tell me which one of these faces do you think is real? Number 1 or 2? Which one's a real person? Anybody want to guess? 1 or 2?
Number
1? 1? Good job. That was my easy one, okay? Number 1. How about number 2? 1 or 2?
2.
2? Okay. It's number 1. Okay. Number 1 or 2? 2. Saw a couple ones, okay. It's number 2. Last one. 1 or 2? 2. Everybody seems kind of 2. No, got 1, 1, 1. Okay. 1. It's not hard. The technology's out there. So some ways that you can look to help spot fake images is you're going to watch for visual distortions in the image. You know, pieces of your glasses missing, a weird earlobe, mismatching earrings, hands in weird placements or missing fingers. In the background, you're going to watch for digital distortion of the image. Pictures on like buses or cars or backgrounds, are the words weird or flipped? Flowers, you know, scenery, buildings, do they look odd? Yeah. And when it comes to kind of these straight-ons right now, depending on the program they're using, they're very like right in the center, the eyes are right in the middle of the page no matter which way they're looking, and the smile is kind of very like unoffensive, very easygoing. But this technology is changing and evolving. So these are tips now. 6 months from now, it could be even harder to spot. So some common types of identity fraud that we're seeing are your traditional financial identity fraud. So this is the most recognized. This is where an individual is going to use another person's identity and information, and they're going to obtain services, goods, information like utility accounts. They're going to open utility accounts, bank accounts, loans, tax fraud. Those are the typical things we see with the financial identity fraud. Medical identity fraud. This is where somebody's going to take your information and go receive medical services for free. Criminal identity fraud. So this is typically when someone is trying to avoid or escape a summons or detection of a warrant, or they're completely altogether trying to avoid arrest and criminal prosecution. They're going to use somebody else's identity as a fake name they're going to give out. And child identity fraud. So it's surprisingly common for child identity fraud to happen really in one of 2 avenues. The first is among people they know and that know the child. They're going to use their information to get loans, bank accounts, employment, housing. And the second is criminals are buying child social security numbers on dark web, dark markets for low prices. And unfortunately, they're really easy to use for synthetic identity, and they go undetected for years because most people aren't aware that it could even happen. So how are they getting our information? You have a question? Yeah.
What can we do to help stop prevent like child fraud? Do we go on the credit report to freeze the social security number, and how do we do that?
So the question is, how can we stop child identity fraud? It's a really great question, and I love where you're going with it, but I'm gonna ask you to hang on with me because we will get there. Okay? Perfect. Another question.
On the previous slide, there's something that I heard about recently having to do with your mortgage or your house or whatever. Would that be under one of these, or is that a separate one?
So the question was, there's been some recent information that they've seen about mortgage fraud or mortgage identity theft and where that kind of falls. I would say that definitely falls under the financial identity fraud because it's using and acquiring products and services. But yes, there is mortgage fraud happening with identity theft involved. Question online?
Yeah, there's one from online. Little unrelated at this time, but it's still good. I'm planning a trip abroad. Simple precautions I can take.
Planning a trip abroad. Okay. The question. There's a lot of things you can do when you're planning a trip abroad. I'll address that question specifically when we get to some other key points. I'll touch on that as we go. I saw another question here.
One of the options you've got there is medical identity fraud.
Yes.
If someone had a person's information, social security number and stuff, they went to the ER and they said, I'm so-and-so, when they're really not. I'm trying to understand why someone would even do that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, from what they understand with the medical identity fraud, if somebody goes to the ER, they have your name and your social, why would they do that? Well, from what we understand about it is they want free medical care. They don't have medical insurance. They don't have coverage. They're a criminal and they don't want their name detected, like that they're visiting an ER, so they might use someone else's information to get health care because they did something they shouldn't have been doing. So, another question. I love it.
As far as medical fraud goes, probably not many people know that the electronic medical records. I went to the University of Minnesota. I wanted a second opinion on my back problem. And I told Mayo, and I signed a form saying, no, do not send my record. And at the University of Minnesota, I signed a form saying, no, I do not want you to have my record. Because in my opinion, it's not a second opinion if they already do somebody else's opinion.
Yep.
So I got up there, and the people at the University of Minnesota tried to force me to sign access to my record. And I went to that doctor 6 times no.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out they had it anyway. Because anywhere in the world, there's Epic electronic medical records. They have your record without your permission. There are millions of people who have access to your record without your permission.
So for those of you who are online who maybe couldn't hear, there was a story about how someone wanted to go get care and a second opinion from 2 different providers, and they were saying, no, I'm not giving you permission to acquire that, my past records, my PAC documentation, but there are indeed ways that those providers, even when you tell them no repeatedly, that they can get that information. Not necessarily identity fraud, medical fraud, but definitely a type of, well, not medical identity theft fraud, but maybe a type of medical fraud for sure. And privacy concerns, absolutely. Yes, yes, and yes, that too. There's definitely some concerns there.
But if anybody,
Yes,
anywhere, whether they're a medical person or not,
right.
has full access to the record.
Yep.
You know,
Public records of medical information, yes.
no, electronic medical record.
Right, which is it's electronic public information.
Well, no, your medical record's not supposed to be public.
It's not supposed to be. That's the key, is it's not supposed to be public, but there are ways. Yep. Okay, so we'll go into some of that. So methods that are employed by identity thieves and how they're getting our information. So phishing tactics, phone calls, emails, text message, all of these scams and tactics are ways for scammers and identity thieves to collect information about you from you. Computer takeover and hacking scams. This is another way you store a lot of private data on your computers, and these takeover scams are designed to collect that data as well as get information, more information from you. Unsecured internet connections, public Wi-Fi. I cannot stress this enough. It is so easy to sign on to public Wi-Fi networks everywhere you go. But every time you do, it is an open connection to scammers to siphon information off of what you are doing on your device while you are on that network.
Can I ask a question about that? 'Cause I
Another question.
about my cell phone.
You have a question about your cell phone?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they want you to go on Wi-Fi as opposed to being on their program. So is that the same as Wi-Fi is that the same access that people can?
So you're talking about like your cell phone provider. The question is asking about the cell phone providers telling you to use your Wi-Fi instead of using like your cell data?
Right.
Okay, that is similar, but not exactly what I'm talking about. When they're telling you to use your Wi-Fi, they're saying like use your home network when you're at home. Use your protected Wi-Fi when you're at home. Yes, they may be telling you to also use public Wi-Fi, but I am going to recommend against that because public Wi-Fi is not secure. So when you sign on to it, anything that you do on your device could be accessed by anybody else on that network. Yes.
So is that better to stay on LTE when you're out and about instead of going onto their Wi-Fi, like at Culver's or a restaurant or somewhere?
Now, one definitely depends on your cell phone service, right? Like I'm not telling you to go overspend your cell phone bill, right? Be careful of that. But yes, I would recommend using your cell service over public Wi-Fi.
And stay on LTE.
Yes, that's your cell service. Yep, if you have the capability to do so and the plan that will allow you to do so, yes.
If somebody told me that, like for instance, let's say you're at a hotel or the shopping center, whatever, you're using their public Wi-Fi, which is easy to do. But, and they said, well, okay, so you're logging into your bank account, but it's like facial recognition. So you're not entering any kind of data, any kind of password. So they're saying that's still safe. Maybe you're saying, no, that's
Yes and no. So your password and your login credentials are safe in that sense. But if the person happens to be on the same time that you're on viewing your information, anything you look at, potentially they could be looking at.
Can they also pick up his password?
Well, he didn't enter his password at that point. It was just a Face ID. So like they can't see that what he's entering in at that point because he's not doing a password. He's using the biometrics, which we'll get to in a little bit.
So I just use the credit union Wi-Fi to take, I wanted to
Yep.
take notes. So this is a public Wi-Fi and it's not safe.
This is a public Wi-Fi. I will say when you are at your bank, your credit union, there is a lot more security going into that Wi-Fi than when you're going down to your coffee shop. So, something to consider. Yes.
Help me out, when you say, if you're on the public Wi-Fi, they can view your information,
They could.
how do they do that?
So in order to explain like the real nitty gritty details of that, I would have to bring in like my IT people to help kind of explain the ins and outs of exactly how it works. We are going to do, and I was going to touch on that here in a little bit, but I feel like clearly this is a need and a want for everybody, so I'll tell you now. We are going to do a full presentation in May on cyber health, where we are specifically going to dive into some of these concerns and questions that people have related to technology and cyber. So I want to keep trucking along so we can get through the important stuff with identity theft today, but I love the questions. Okay, so methods used by identity thieves. The next one we talked about data breaches, right? We saw the statistics, we saw the numbers. Malicious websites. This is another hot one. When you're going to websites for, looking up different things, visiting different companies, there are malicious websites out there that are looking to collect your information. Public record searches. Not everything that we think is public that should be public is, or that it should be private is private. There are a lot of different ways to collect information and data about people that is public. Family identity theft. This is another big one that people don't expect. The amount of family members that I see take advantage of kids, elderly, disabled, people who just need support and help and steal their identities and use it for their own benefit is outrageous. Shoulder surfing. So this is like when you're at the coffee shop doing something, not technology-wise, but somebody's just sitting by you and they're watching what you're doing. Social media. This is another big hot button because all those quizzes that are out there that are fun, like, oh, how many countries have you visited? When did you get married or have kids? How many of these things, meet you? Or do you meet these measurements? All of that is data collection. And you never know who really is putting on those surveys and what that information is giving them access to. Traditional, old school methods, home and car break-ins, dumpster diving, lost or stolen smartphones and digital devices. This is really, really crucial. If people don't password protect their devices, they leave them open at all times. You don't have to use anything to get into it. Makes it a lot easier. Stolen wallets, and then card skimmers and shimmers. So this is like the devices on, when you're using your card. So what is considered personal identifiable information? So it's any data that could potentially identify a specific individual. So there's different types of data. So you've got your non-private information, which is going to be your device ID, your IP address, and your cookies. Then we've got your non-sensitive information, which is your name, email address, home address, phone number. These things are typically going to be available anywhere and everywhere. Then we have information that is sensitive by itself. It's going to be your social security number, the last 4 digits of your social security number, as you saw with my last slide about how they can just decode it. Driver's license or state ID numbers, passports, alien registration, your financial accounts, and any of your biometric data. Okay? And then there's information that's sensitive if it's combined with other information. This is going to be your birthday, citizenship, immigration status, religion, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, medical information, employment, criminal records, maiden name, mother's maiden name, account username, and password. Okay? So it's really important to use caution when sharing, especially these things. Your social security number, your government IDs, credit card numbers, bank account numbers, usernames and passwords together, along with that SMS code, that 2-factor authentication code. Your non-sensitive data is important. Just because your name and address and everything is everywhere doesn't mean go give it out to everybody. You still want to keep that information protected as much as you can so that they don't have even easier access to you. Just making sure I'm not missing anything here. Yeah, they already have enough information. Let's not do them any favors. Okay, so we're going to go through and talk through some preventative measures here. Social security number. Not everybody needs your social security number. The places that need your social security number are going to be the IRS, your financial institution, your employer, if you have Medicare or Medicaid benefits, and tax returns. These organizations are not going to call you, email you, or text you and ask you for your social security information. Organizations that want your social security number, but they don't need it. Schools. They're going to ask you for it, but you actually don't have to give it to them. There are other forms that you can fill out instead. Doctors and dentists. This one is tricky because they ask for it because they want a way to track you down for payments and collection reasons. But you don't have to give it to them. Now keep that in mind, they don't have to take you as a patient either. So it's kind of a risk versus reward benefit. But ask them why they need it. Sports clubs, children's camps, loyalty programs, charities, they do not need your social security number. There's no reason they should have it. They don't need it. So what can you do before giving it out? Ask the following questions. Why do you need it? How are you going to protect it? Can you use a different identifier? And can you just use the last 4? Now, no, we know the last 4 is not perfectly safe, like there's ways to decode it, but it's better than the full thing, right? Some alternatives that you can give instead of your social security are going to be your driver's license, photo and the number, passport, current and previous addresses, and for some people, student IDs. So again, some companies aren't going to accept alternatives, but the more you ask questions about how they're going to protect it, what you can do instead, the better you are to help protect your identity. The next preventative measure we're going to touch on is monitoring and shredding. So monitor your financial accounts. This is both depository accounts, like checking, savings accounts, and your investment accounts. Make sure you're setting up account alerts so that way you're getting notifications when things are being changed, people are logging in. Set up those account alerts. And make sure you're checking them often enough. Checking and savings accounts you should be checking about weekly. Investments accounts monthly. If you're not checking it that often, it's not enough these days. Statements. Know when your statement print or cut date is. So what I mean by that is know, are you ending on the 30th, and so your statement's going to print on the 1st, and so you should be getting it about the 10th? Or is it the 15th? So you're going to get it about, the 30th. When does it cut? When should it arrive? And how should your statement arrive? Is it going to come paper, or do you get it electronic? This is all your different kinds of statements. Medical, financial, utility bills, right? Know when that stuff is supposed to come. And again, set up those alerts that say, like, my statement has arrived. Question.
How safe are online high-interest savings accounts?
So the
Marcus, Goldman Sachs.
Got it. So the question was, how safe is online high-interest savings accounts? As safe as any other financial institution, right? Financial institutions have very stringent guidelines that they have to follow, rules, regulations for safety and security measures. So if it's with a reputable company, it's going to be safe. They're protecting it. Now, your access, that doesn't mean you should not still monitor it. Because relationships with any institution, any business are two-way. They obviously have their rules, their requirements, the things that they're trying to do to help keep everyone safe, but it's also your responsibility to keep your stuff safe as well. Another question in the back.
I've often wondered the same thing that he asked, because, you used to be able to buy things from the treasury, bonds and bills and stuff. And fill out forms and mail them back and forth and everything. Now you can only do it online.
Right.
So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter how good their security is, because the information is on your unit.
Okay, so the question,
To break the other people, they just have to break yours.
right. Yeah, so the question was kind of off the last question about how more and more information is online now. And so it's not just about who you're doing business with and their security, but it is also indeed about your end, your security as well. Yep. Anything I'm missing on this? Oh, I'm not sure if I said this already, so I'm going to say it again. If your statement and bill does not arrive, check on it. Don't let it go. Don't say, oh, it'll come eventually. Check on it, because that can be the first steps and signs of identity theft, is something's not showing up when it should be. Medical statements and bills. So this is similar to your financial ones, okay? How should your statement or bill arrive? Is it coming paper? Is it coming electronic? Is it coming into a portal? Know how that information is going to show up for you. Or is it coming in multiple channels? After you get care, watch for that expected bill. Many times people are like, okay, I went and had care, and then their bill shows up, they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Watch for that bill. Make sure it arrives like it's supposed to. And review all your medical bills for abnormalities. This is not only to help prevent with medical identity theft, but this is also going to prevent mischarges and, in general, medical fraud, right? And then the last item for the preventive measures for monitor and shred is going to be shredding your documents. So MEFCU, Mayo Credit Union here in Rochester, offers a free shredding event every year, okay? So get everything ready, watch for that email, we post it out there, and then just bring everything in. We'll shred it for you. You're gonna look to shred anything that has any of that personal identifiable information on it. Medical, financial. The one I didn't put on here that I was thinking about later and was like, no, I need to tell people this, is your digital shredding. And what I mean by that is when you delete something, it's not completely gone from your device. It's not gone from your computer. It's usually sitting in your trash can. Make sure you are completely deleting things from your devices. Question?
At one time, they said you should save things for at least 7 years and get rid of everything after, older than that. Some I've heard 3 years. What do you advise?
I am not a tax professional. I will not the question was, how long should you save your documentation for? 7 years, they've heard 3 years. I'm not a tax professional. That is a question I would talk to your tax professional about, because maybe that's changed. I have also heard similar things, but that is not something I am qualified to advise in. So, sorry about that one. All right, our next preventative measure, do we have another question? Okay. Our next preventative measure is looking at our credit report, okay? So know your credit report. Review it regular. You can go to annualcreditreport.com or you can call, and they're gonna ask you to provide your name, your social security number, your address, your date of birth. They're gonna verify you, but then you can pull your credit report and review it for abnormalities. You're gonna look for accounts that you didn't open, pieces of personal information that maybe aren't related to you, things like that. Consider placing a credit freeze or a fraud alert. They are different. I'll touch on how they're different later, but this can be a huge preventative measure for you to protect your credit. And we'll touch on exactly how to do that in a little bit here. And then monitor your credit. So again, ongoingly, make sure you are checking your credit. This could be through self-monitoring, where you can go to Annual Credit Report and do it yourself, or it can be through a credit monitoring service. So a credit monitoring service is a commercial service that you are paying a fee for them to watch your credit report for you and alert you to any changes or adjustments to your credit report. We're going to talk about monitoring services here just a minute. Credit monitoring and identity theft monitoring are not the same thing. A credit monitoring service is going to monitor your credit and alert you to changes on your credit only. Identity theft monitoring services might include credit monitoring services, but they're also going to monitor bank accounts, public records, dark markets. What else? They also may have recovery services available for you, and they may cover losses for you depending on the service. So when you're looking at these services, here's some major things I want you to consider. First, look if you have stuff that is already included with your credit cards or your financial institutions. A lot of credit cards now will give you credit monitoring with it included. Employers have, identity theft programs. Look at what is already available to you before you consider purchasing or accepting a free credit monitoring service, okay? Free credit monitoring is not always free. A lot of times these services come with conditions, terms, hidden fees, or cancellation requirements. Even the ones that after you have a data breach, they're like, we're going to offer you free credit monitoring. No, look at it. Really look at the fine details. Okay. All right. Understand exactly what you're paying for. So when you do choose a service, understand, are you getting all of the bells and whistles? Are you getting somebody to help you with recovery services? Do you have coverage if you take a financial loss, and what is that coverage? And then research the company. Go to your state attorney general's website, the state attorney general's office, the Better Business Bureau, and look up the company. Do they have complaints? What is their rating? What are other people saying about this company? And then ask them how they're protecting your information. So this one is critical because you're giving them all your information, right? So like we've seen, breaches happen. No company is immune to breach, but what's important when it comes to breaches is looking at how is the company responding to a breach? How are they communicating with you about a breach? What are they doing to help move through it, and how many have they had? Another question.
What about those places they say, I can't remember the names of them, but
Like LifeLock?
not like, they have they have your financial record, and you're supposed to be able to check in with them free once a year. There's 4 of them.
I don't know about 4, but so the question is asking about, there's a company that you can check in once a year. That is annualcreditreport.com. That is the only government federally backed company that will give you your credit information for free. It used to be that you could check it from each 3 bureaus once a year for free. They have now, since COVID, changed it to weekly. So you can now check it weekly for free. But that's the one. Okay, so the number one thing with this to understand is just make sure you know if you're signing up for one of these services, what is being offered and what are the terms before you sign up and agree to it. So our next preventative measure is increasing online security. So my caveat with this is we are doing a full cyber health webinar or seminar in May. This one is just some quick tips, things you can do now to actively help you with identity theft, okay?
Do you have the May date yet, by chance?
Seth might be able to get us that
I'll get that.
by the end. Yeah. Well, somebody asked if we had the May date. We can probably get that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to recommend is using a strong password and change them often. I know you hear this over and over again. I know that it is inconvenient, it's a nuisance, and we hate passwords, okay? Really consider using a password manager. The best things you can do for yourself are going to make your password long, at least 16 characters, make it unique, never reuse or reshare passwords, or share passwords, reuse or share passwords, okay? If you use it at your bank, don't use it at your investment company. Don't, heaven forbid, don't use your password at your bank on your social media accounts. The more you share passwords across platforms, the easier it is for these scammers to get into everything, okay? Avoid common dictionary words. So these are the most top 10 common passwords for 2024. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. QWERTY. People are like, why QWERTY? Because it's like the letters across the keyboard on the top. Okay? Password. We have to do better for ourselves. We can't make it this easy for them. If we make it this easy, that's why they're winning. We got to do better. So make them complex. Use upper and lowercase letters, numbers and spaces, special characters. Try password phrases like Marmaduke is a sloppy dog, right? Something that means something to you that maybe is fun or silly that you can remember, and then change like the A to an @ sign, the S to a number 3. Password authentication, passkeys. It's a little bit what we were talking about earlier. So this is what a passkey is a passkey is a specific way to log into your account without using a password. So they're going to use pieces of your device like your fingerprint, your face recognition, a pin, or a pattern to make a connection to your apps and accounts and websites that isn't stolen or can't be stolen like a password. Doesn't mean it can't be stolen, but it can't be stolen like a password, okay? It is currently our strongest form of protection. It is a really great alternative to passwords, and it's a unique ID. So each time you set up a passkey, it is like linked specifically uniquely to each device and the website and account that you're going to. So there's a unique piece on each side. And it's going to bring more resistance to those phishing scams. So somebody cannot, try to collect your username and password from you and get in with a passkey. They need either the, face print, the thumbprint, the face ID, or the pin, one of those things to get in. And then it's private. So the biometric data is stored on your device. It's not shared with the other side, so it's all on your device. And it's pretty simple and intuitive, really pretty easy to use. I will say with passkeys, like everything else, you know, we're all like, this is the wave of the future. This is the new way of authentication. But the fraudsters and scammers, like always, are right on our heels, right? They're coming up with things just as fast as we are to take over and use these too. So nothing is immune, but it's really important to make sure you continually educate yourself and keep up to date on these things and follow the newest recommendations to try to stay ahead of them.
I have the May date.
You have the May date?
Yes. For the cyber presentation is Wednesday, May 22nd at 12:15 p.m.
So the cyber presentation is Wednesday, May 22nd at 12:15 p.m.
Thank you.
All right.
Could you bring in those places that we could call to check our files?
Yeah. Yep, I'll have some information still coming for you, and there's some in the information that we take away. So there was questions about where the contact information is to call the credit reporting agencies. For people online, if you want that specific handouts and information, just email us, call us, we can get that to you. Otherwise, there's handouts over here with all that information on it as well.
Is here now?
Yep, right over here, along there. Yep, and I can point it out afterwards for people who can't find it.
On this Face ID, so many sites now use face recognition.
Yep,
And as soon as you open up that site, it goes into that and it's quick.
yep,
But how reliable is that from site to site?
that's passkey. That's a passkey.
And they're reliable.
They are currently the strongest form of verification.
Use eyes?
It's using like your biometric data that you've done in your phone. Yep.
I've always wondered that with a heavy beard in the winter, does it change over?
Yeah, I mean, with the biometric data, you'll notice sometimes, like if you're in a dark room and you go to try to log into something, it won't work. And there's things like that that might cause that facial recognition to not work, and that's sometimes maybe where you'll struggle. But for the most part, it does a pretty good job. So,
I found the brochure.
perfect. We'll come back to it afterwards. I'll make sure you have the information because we've got a lot more to cover.
Yeah, could you just repeat the one that you said is the government one?
Yep, it's annualcreditreport.com. Yep, we're only about halfway through, so we gotta keep flying. I love the questions. Okay, increasing online security. So, we're going on here. So recognizing phishing attempts is the next step for increasing online security. If you weren't expecting it, don't open it, verify it. If it creates a strong emotional reaction, excitement, panic, fear, worry, if you're like, pause. Don't take an action until you've verified it. If it seems too good to be true, it is. Handle all emails, texts, calls as suspicious until proven otherwise. We can no longer trust all of our communication coming in. We live in a world now where we need to validate our communication before we trust it, not the other way around. And the big thing I want to touch on is if you do take an action, if you click on something, if you go to a bad link, if you have your computer pop up and it's screaming at you with noises saying you're compromised and to call this number, contact professional IT support right away. I cannot stress this enough. We all have a friend who's good with technology. I'm not talking about that friend. And yes, some of us might have kids that are actually IT professionals or friends that are IT professionals. That's who you need to see. Somebody who is actually an IT professional actively working in the field who knows what's currently going on with these scams and malware and antivirus, all of that, right? That's who you want to see when this stuff comes up. Yes?
On emails, I've noticed that when you get an email, let's say it's from USAA.com, and you think, well, okay, I'm with USAA, so I'm going to click on it. But instead of opening up the email, I click on the address that it came from, and then it says Sam Smith at England.com.
Yeah.
And then you delete it.
So we're talking about when you get an email hovering over the link to see really where the link is from, not just trusting what it says. Yep, for sure. And then the next piece here with online security is going to be make sure, excuse me, use secure websites and networks. So when you're going to websites, make sure they are HTTPS, not HTTP. What the S stands for is secure. Scammers and fraudsters are more likely to use HTTP because they don't need to pay for it. That does not mean that all HTTPS is safe, but it's a better bet. The other thing to watch for with websites is when you Google something, let's say you're trying to find Amazon customer support, you Google Amazon customer support, you're probably going to get a sponsored ad right at the front that says Amazon. Don't click on sponsored ads. Scroll down and find the one that says Amazon down further. Fraudsters and scammers are paying to have their spoofed websites pushed to the top, so it's the first thing you click. Scroll down, make sure you're clicking on the valid one. Use password protected Wi-Fi. Whenever possible, use a password protected Wi-Fi. And make sure you're updating software, antivirus, and malware regularly. Again, this one might generate a lot of questions. We will address more of this in the cyber health webinar, but just make sure that you're checking your phone to make sure the software is up to date, making sure you have antivirus and malware on your computers and that things are up to date, okay? Okay, let's try to go quick. Responding to identity theft. So if you have had identity theft, here's what we need to do. The first immediate action you need to take is to contact the company that you know the fraud occurred at. This could be full identity theft or you've just had a fraudulent transaction, right? Contact that company. Go to their direct app or website. Again, www.companyname.com. Don't Google it. Direct app or website. Make sure you're getting the real person. You're asked for the fraud department and tell them you've had identity theft. Okay? Explain the situation to them. Ask them to close or freeze the accounts to prevent new charges and new accounts being opened without approval. And then ask if they have any additional security measures for you. Can they add a password to your account? Can they add a callback process to your account? What do they have available to add an additional layer of security for you? And then change all logins, passwords, and PINs on your account. Anticipate you might be talking to them again later in the process, but this is the immediate first action for any account that's had fraud on it, okay? Then you're going to go place a fraud alert. Fraud alerts are free. You can contact any one of the 3 credit reporting agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian, at annualcreditreport.com. And they are required to tell the other 2 that you have a fraud alert and they have to put a fraud alert on for you. It's going to limit new accounts and limit changes from being made on your account without your notification. And it's going to require organizations and businesses to verify before they make any changes. So they have to use a phone number that you will provide when you place the fraud alert to validate before they can make any changes. And then each bureau is going to send you a letter by mail confirming that a fraud alert has been placed. This can also be a great preventative measure. And I'll talk a little bit about that here. So there's initial fraud alerts. So this is the best one that is used for a preventative measure. If you think you've been a victim of identity theft, you don't have any major fraud that you see, but you think it's possible, this is the alert to use. This will place a fraud alert on your account for a year, and then it can be renewed every year. So it's something you have to stay on top of, but it can be done every year. Question?
If you have a credit freeze.
Bear with me. The question was if you have a credit freeze. We're getting there next.
Okay.
Just wait 1 second, okay? The extended fraud alert is for 7 years. So this is if you are an active victim of identity theft, okay? This one you have to provide them with an identity theft report from the FTC to have placed. And then the last one is our active duty military alert. So this is for active duty members to help them so you don't have to worry about your identity being used while you're on active deployment, okay? Security freezes. So hopefully we'll address your question, okay? So security freezes are different than fraud alerts. They are placed the same place, annualcreditreport.com, go to all the TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. and they are preventative or a reactive measure to identity theft. They are free, and they remain on until you remove them. This is how they are a little bit different than alerts. Alerts expire after 1 year, freezes stay. These ones you have to actively go in place with each credit bureau. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. They will not communicate a freeze to each other. You have to go place one. With this one, unlike a fraud alert, businesses will not be able to pull credit when you have a freeze on, which can be good or bad. But you're in control. That's what I love about this. I keep my credit frozen. If I'm going to get credit, I know I'm going to get credit, and then I will go, they have really easy websites. You just go, I say from this date to this date, unfreeze my credit. It'll do a temporary lift. I'll go do what I need to do, and then it'll automatically put it back on for me. But then I know nobody's taking out credit in my name. Highly recommend doing this. You are going to have to provide a lot of information to do a security freeze. Full name, social security number, current address, birthday, email, addresses you've been at in the last 2 years. You have to provide them a copy of government identification, as well as a utility bill, a bank statement, insurance statement, something of that nature. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to review your credit. You're going to pull your quotes. Here's that website exactly written out for people, annualcreditreport.com, right there. You're going to review your credit. You're going to check, like I said earlier, for anything you did not open, anything of your private information that's not related to you. Never pay to get a copy of your credit report. There's no reason to do it. And like I said before, you can check this once a week for free. The other thing, yeah, inconsistencies, private information. Yep, okay, covered all that, good. Collect all your information.
So at one time, and I think you've already addressed this, so
It's okay.
I'm just confirming. At one time, if you had checks on your credit report, it would impact your credit score. But now we're saying that doesn't happen. You can check up to once a week and it won't affect it?
It's a really great question. So the question was, at one time it used to impact your credit score every time you would check it, and now we're saying once a week it will impact your score. Well, we're lucky that we have our financial counselor in the room with us, and I'm going to double check my answer with her. Soka, when you use annualcreditreport.com, it does not impact your score, correct?
That is correct, it does not impact your
Okay. So annualcreditreport.com does not impact your score when you are checking it. I was pretty sure that was the answer, but I wanted to double check. So annualcreditreport.com links all 3 credit bureaus together. So it will direct you out to their individual websites, but it's like the combined collective place to start. Yes?
I'm wondering why my credit score would have dropped 30 points, even though I don't, I bought a new car here a while back, paid it off, and I went to check my credit score and it had dropped 30 points.
So the question is about why a credit score dropped. My encouragement with you would be go check your credit report and figure out what's changed on it, and then meet with Soka. That's what I would tell you. She is our credit guru. She is our financial counselor. She's amazing. So she's great for those kind of supports. Okay? All right. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to actually report the identity theft to the FTC. So you're going to go to identitytheft.gov or call the number and report your fraud, your identity theft. Here's what I would tell you. Well, I'll go through that in a minute. So you're going to include as many details as possible. This is going to generate for you a personalized identity theft recovery plan. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can go online and you can create an account. I 100% absolutely would tell you do that. Here's why. When you create an account, it's going to walk you through each step. It's going to update your plan as you need it or as other things come up. It's going to track your progress, and it's going to give you pre-filled letters and forms to use along the way. If you choose to go online and not create an account, or call in, you must print and save everything right away because you will lose it. There's no help tracking and there's no updating your plan. And everything, paper copies are going to come in the mail of your report, and you're not going to get any pre-filled forms or letters. So the most support is here, okay? The reason I recommend doing these steps in the order that I've laid them out here is because a lot of things that happen with identity theft, you end up needing to go to multiple places. Like maybe your driver's license was stolen, so you're gonna have to report that to the DMV, or your social security number, and you're gonna have to report that to the social security office. Well, the DMV requires a police report from your local police. The local police require an FTC report. So by following this step, you're going to have the information you need as you work through the process instead of having to continually backtrack. Why report? You get that personal recovery plan. It's really important to report so you know what steps you need to take to prevent that 18% that continue to experience loss after they've had identity theft. It's going to help local law enforcement and other agencies detect and prevent fraud and potentially catch these criminals. If we don't report it, there's no hope at all to catch them. It provides businesses and collection agencies proof that you were a victim. I cannot tell you how many people come back to me years later and they're like, they're coming after me for collections for fraud I didn't commit. Well, did you file a report? You've got no proof that it wasn't you. File that report. Have the proof. And filing that report is going to guarantee you certain rights and privileges as a victim of fraud and identity theft through multiple federal and state regulations and policies. If you're, oh, another question, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I've had so many notifications of my accounts being breached. And I was just paid over $700 for a Capital One breach. And all I had to do was fill out a form. So when you know these things are happening, look for a class action suit.
Yeah, the question is just talking about the importance of filing and completing forms, because when stuff does happen, there are additional ways to recover. My only caution with that is make sure you actually were part of the breach and that you do have a card with the company reaching out, so that it's, because there are scams that involve that too.
No, they paid me.
No, I know, but yes, yes. The next point here is if you're dealing with tax, medical, or child identity theft, we're going to touch on the child piece here in just a second. But there are additional steps that are needed for these. Again, this is why I stress going to identitytheft.gov and getting this report, because it's going to help tailor a specific plan for your situation. Child identity theft. So Experian estimates that 24%, so about 1 in 4 children, will fall victim to identity theft before the age of 18. A child's identity credentials are particularly vulnerable to identity thieves because, as we've talked about, it can go undetected for years. And they love to scoop them up on dark websites and dark platforms because they're really cheap and easy to use for synthetic identity. So secure your child's credit. Watch for red flags. If you're getting credit card bills, credit card mailing offers, IRS notices, mail in your child's name, it's a sign. That's a red flag that you need to start looking into this. And don't delay. Act immediately if you see something suspicious. Freeze your child's credit.
Even if they're 40?
If your child's 40, they have to do it themselves. The question was, even if your child's 40, they have to do it themselves. We'll touch on the child piece here in just the next moment here. And take extra precautions for your family and your information. Is your family's sensitive documents secure? Do you have a safety deposit box? Do you have a fireproof lock box at home, safe? We all want to think we can trust our kids' friends, but I'm telling you, there are now kids, teenagers from anywhere from 12 to 18, 19, 20 that are being hired to steal information from their friends and their friends' parents. And they're making a little bit of cash on the side to do it. Enough to them that seems like a big deal, and what they're giving these criminals is not a big deal. Again, ask if the social security number for your child is required. A lot of the times it's not. Protect your child's social security number. And then have the talk, which everybody jokes about the talk because it could be any type of the talk. But have a routine, age-appropriate conversation with your children about what it means to share information online and in person, and why it's best to keep that information private. So placing a freeze on a minor or a child's credit is a little bit more challenging than doing it for just yourself. A minor is considered a child of the age 16 or under, okay? Under the age of 16, under the age of 16. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna start by checking to see if they have a credit report in their name. They may not. If they don't, request that a credit file is created, and then request that a freeze is immediately placed upon creation. Each credit agency has its own process to do this. You have to do it with each one individually. They've all got their slight variations of this process, but generally what they're going to ask you to do is to collect documentation to prove your identity, your authority over the child, like that you're their parent or guardian, and then your minor's identity. They have a form they're going to have you complete, and then you have to send everything in. Yes, to my dislike, 2 of the 3 you have to mail it in. They do offer certified mail. I would recommend using certified mail. And then the third, Experian, which is my favorite right now because they offer the ability to upload your documents online. So you don't have to send it through the post office, which is a whole nother mail theft fraud situation, okay? And then typically you're gonna get a response within 10 to 15 days. Really quick, this is our Knowledge and Resource Center. I can get people more information about like the FTC. Frozen PII is a great resource also for identity theft. And then annualcreditreport.com is the only free credit agency authorized by the federal law. It connects all 3 bureaus. It's the only place to go. And then don't forget about your financial institution. They're your partners. Here at the credit union, we offer, your fraud alerts for your debit card and your credit card. Lots of transaction alerts in your online banking. You can really tailor and pick it to what you would like. I highly recommend setting up an alert so every time you log into your banking, you get an alert. Because if someone's logging in and it's not you, you should be worried. We have online banking access where you can monitor your accounts, online and paper statements that give you the ability to review it in real time. Lots of member support, phone, text, chat, in person. And we have our amazing financial wellness counselor, which you got to meet today, who's amazing with helping with budget, financial goals, credit repair, all things credit. And lastly, here at Mayo Employees Credit Union, we support all Mayo employees and their family. No matter where you choose to do your banking at, your financial institution, no matter who they are, our team is here to review any situation that's weird with you, any credit issue, any identity theft issue. That's why we're here to support you. And I know we are at time, so thank you to everybody online. Is there any questions for online people first? Okay, thank you very much. And any questions here? Here first, sorry, we'll come back. Go ahead.
In the future, I wouldn't mind some guidance on car insurance. I'm getting so much thrown at me about, if you're a senior in Minnesota, there's a special deal, and I just don't know what's real and not real. And, if that was, I would like to suggest that as a program if anyone else is interested.
Okay, so there's a suggestion that they would like future information on car insurance. I'll let people know. Question here first. Whoop, 1 second, the blue.
So you showed us how to do a credit freeze, but how do you do a mortgage freeze?
A mortgage freeze. That one I have not heard of.
Evidently now you can do a mortgage freeze because people can go out and use your mortgage, and then all of a sudden you find out months later that somebody used your mortgage.
I've heard of that scam. I have not heard of the mortgage freeze yet. So if you want to connect with me and get me your contact information, I will, being part of the certified fraud examiners, I have a whole network of people. I will reach out and get an answer to that and find more information out about that for you. Yeah. Question here in the back.
I was just gonna say, some scams are really bizarre, like my neighbors were, he can get a they hadn't ordered anything from Amazon, and they were like trinkets, like a coffee
Yep.
cup or whatever, and Amazon said, don't send them back, you know, we don't want them, use them or give them to your friends or whatever,
Yeah.
but after they finally got a hold of somebody at Amazon who was willing to be helpful, they found out that, well, these Chinese companies have your information,
Yep.
and they're sending you these trinkets because it makes them look good, like, well, we sold 10,000 last month, well, you know, they didn't buy it, we just got it free, but, my neighbors were unsettled because they said, well, these Chinese companies have our information.
Yeah, so he's talking about how scams get weird, and we're talking about the package arrival scam where packages show up at your door and you're not expecting it. In this case, it was Amazon products. This is very common. So one, yes, I would be concerned about your identity. And two, what they're also using those packages for is to write fake reviews on their products so that way they can say that they've delivered all these products and it's a great product. But yes, that is a very common scam. One on here.
Another scam I was involved with through Facebook was a company called Temu, T-E-M-U.
Yes, yep, watch out for Temu.
They said they sent it, I never received it. I checked with my credit card company, reported it.
Yep.
The company told them that they sent it, and they weren't gonna send me another one. I ended up paying for it. And the credit card company, American Express, after a certain amount of time said they looked into it, and it was like $20-some, but they said they're paying it.
So American Express refunded you?
No,
Oh, interesting.
no,
Why did you pay for it?
why did I pay for it? I ordered it online.
Oh, you really did order it, but you never got it.
So, I mean, there is a process that when you have a debit card dispute, there is a process you have to go through when you made a purchase and it does not arrive. Typically, there's a back and forth of like they have to prove you received the product. So I can't speak to their process or their investigation, but that
I made the report, and I just basically told them I did not receive the product. Here's the date, here's the amount.
yeah.
They checked back with me, I said I still haven't received it, but then after about another 3 or 4 weeks, they said they went ahead and processed it.
Interesting.
Getting a new credit card.
Yeah, yeah.
I just froze that account.
Yep.
And
Yes.
dropped it.
I didn't hear you mention anything about independent identity theft protection programs offered by reputable companies.
Yeah, so that kind of goes under like my identity theft monitoring section. What I would say to those is kind of like what I touched on. If you choose to employ them, because that's essentially what you're doing, if you're paying for their services, make sure you have thoroughly researched them, that you know exactly what you're getting, and that you know what they're doing to make sure they're protecting your information and what they're like, how many breaches or compromises they've had, because they've got a lot of